Hello, hello, hello. We are at the Oxford Sports Pub in Secret Society in Altamont Springs. You can't make this shit up.
No, you can't make this shit up.
Joel Hawksley, David Washington. We're here again. And it's a great day today. It's Content Thursday. We're putting all our
Oh.
content together.
This is look at this. I got a long sleeve shirt on
Yes,
because
I
it's
got
nice
the
and cool
turtleneck
this
on.
morning. The high today is going to be 77 degrees. You know, Florida is the place to live.
Yes.
And I mean, no wonder everybody wants to live down here. But they can move in, but I want them to leave their politics behind.
Speaking of politics, this is you can't make this shit up, and this is what we do. Politics, and right now we're
The house
looking
is
at
in order.
yes,
So what I meant by that, if you're not aware, the Florida House of Representatives, the Senate, they are in session. 3 months, correct? Yeah. So
That's correct.
For the next 3 months,
yes,
they'll be in session unless there's a special session later on. But the legislation that's being passed it's going to be heavily uh, Republican. It's going to be heavily in DeSantis's favor because
Oh,
he has a
yes.
super majority.
yes, he does.
So unlike states that have to kind of negotiate and get around,
hmm
the Florida House and Senate fully, like nobody showed up, and you've had that conversation
Oh,
about that.
yes,
But I'm looking at the things, and I just I'll talk about a bill later that I think Anna Eskamani might actually finally get a bill
her
passed.
very first bill passed.
It's still up in the air because
But we were talking before we started recording that Republicans have that supermajority, and there are bills that are being considered that have gotten the Democrats, in in the uproar.
but they wouldn't be in an uproar if they had come out and voted. I mean,
Exactly.
if Florida is no longer purple, and I'm going to stand firm on that. It's clearly Republican now. We have the registration, we have the motivation. Until the Democrats decide that they want to actually get a bench, put a
Mhm.
bench together.
Right.
I mean, look at what Nikki did. Nikki Freed just went over to the run the party.
Right.
So the one person that could win statewide didn't win statewide for the primary.
right.
They all went to the Republican Charlie Crist. So I mean, I don't know what's going on in the Democratic Party. I don't even know if you know what's going on, but I do know what's going on up in Tallahassee.
Yes.
So, which bill did you want to talk about first?
It's House Bill 999 and House Bill 999. And I'll read here the Public Post Secondary Educational Institutions Bill. Okay. And what the concern is that House Bill 999 will ban colleges from financially supporting any programs or campus activities that espouse diversity, equity, or inclusion, or critical race theory rhetoric.
Okay.
Some are concerned that this would ban black fraternities on campus, fraternities and
but-
sororities.
But now, you explain that to me. So, explain to the audience what that was, because I said
Right.
something very rude afterwards. So,
Right.
so, get
So,
it.
so what that means is that because black sororities and fraternities espouse diversity, different Greek traditions, that their program may be in jeopardy because it is supported by the college. Most
Okay, but yeah, I
most
understand.
black
So I-
sororities and
So I
fraternities
understand that, but
receive public money, and they do espouse diversity in their membership alone. You look at their membership
Well, why would that affect the sororities and the fraternities?
because they
They-
receive their public dollars. They receive their financial backing from public dollars from the college.
Well, they should get off the tit of the college. I mean, if they get off the tit of the college and actually have some of these wealthy people that have come out, I mean,
You make a good point.
the Greeks, if you have a Greek sorority fraternity, you're usually very successful
Correct.
because you have built a network
Yeah,
that
that's
other people aren't advantaged with.
That's one of the purposes.
So most of those, and it's just hard to say this the way I'm saying it, but I have to be, serious. Those fraternities and sororities that are predominantly white, they're getting their dollars from
Rightfully.
the people that came before them, and then they'll be investing in it just like you invest in your college.
Yes. Right. And I did not know that a lot of the financial support, at least here, with some black sororities and fraternities, receive their financial support from the college itself. I was not aware of that.
Well, I wasn't either until you
Right.
said it, and that's why I said that. But I said, if I'm sorry, it sounds rude, but
Mhm.
I got to be honest, and I can't. If it's brutal, it's brutal. But
Mhm.
this is the same argument that conservatives have all the time. But at the same time, let's talk about where this bill is going
Okay.
and kind of what is it actually constitutionally going to stand on its own 2 feet. So those are kind of things that, because when you mess with the First Amendment, I mean, it's only going to affect state colleges. It can't affect the private college.
Correct.
So, I guess the Republicans are just trying to take the incubator for liberals and make it a little bit more fair. But can you force this on the schools? I mean, diversity. Yeah, I mean, I think the diversity program should be invested in. I think that people should be, actually putting that money up from private funds. But that's for me. That's my opinion on all of the arts and all this other stuff. I think when you're spending tax dollars to keep a school open and every dollar is counted for.
Right. If in fact that black sororities and fraternities are affected by this bill, if it becomes law, I agree. There should be apparatus within that particular Greek organization to raise funds for their organization and keep their organization moving forward. Black Greek organizations have been around for at least 100 years, most of them. So there should be that donor base available to support, at least in part, these organizations. Also, this bill would end any type of conversation about critical race theory, which my understanding that's at the highest levels of education, like being a lawyer. But that's a different story. But also, it will prohibit any courses that will address women's studies or gender studies.
Again, I'm so conservative, but sometimes I feel like the party's taken a very strange place for me, because I've read the Constitution and I think I understand it. I'm not a lawyer, and I mean, our governor is.
Correct.
And our governor is
Navy lawyer, or
JAG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you watch JAG on TV; it's nothing like that.
It's kind of boring, isn't it?
I would say that. Yeah, it's pretty boring.
Yes.
The only time you really, you should have been listening to my show this morning, military tribunals for the very first woman that Mary Surratt I talked about.
Oh, really? Okay.
And she goes down in history. So she is history as the first woman executed by the United States government.
Damn.
Because the military tribunal that she went through. And then later on, the Supreme Court comes out and says you can't do that. They don't have any jurisdiction.
Mhm.
So was she probably? I mean, Andrew Johnson killed her, honestly, because she'd gotten a writ. I mean, oh, not a writ, but she got a stay of execution from the courts because he wanted to. Her lawyer wanted to argue that same issue,
Mhm.
that she should have been in a civilian court, not in a military court, and the judge signed off on it. But because it was a military tribunal, the commander in chief is the president of the
The
United
president,
States,
yes.
and Andrew Johnson was part.
Johnson or Jackson?
Andrew Johnson, the vice president.
Okay.
The vice president, Andrew Johnson.
Okay.
Phew, you had me confused there for a second. He signed her death warrant. Wow. He said, there's no stay of execution.
I gotta listen to that.
And he signs it, sends it down. The lawyer's shocked that there's still four nooses, whatever.
Right.
I'm
Wow.
tied tongue today. So he's freaking out, and he finds out the president of the United States, because he was part of the plot, has signed her death warrant. There's no conflict of interest there either.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
he changed his plans. He didn't even get touched. But I mean, I'm not saying that.
Right.
It's
So given this new bill and the possible, seeing that in this
So
new
we couldn't-
bill,
so
we
women-
wouldn't be able to learn anything about this.
well, you wouldn't be. You would have to learn it from a different direction. You'd have to
Right.
be in a very. You would have to be in a history class. You'd have to be in something that actually talks about, the history of the United States, and then you can bring up these different things. But you can't bring it up. So you can't make somebody feel or
Oh, here we go
guilty.
into feelings.
Yeah, it's feelings, but you can't take a person and put them in an uncomfortable position by saying that just by being born white,
Mhm.
you're racist.
Mhm.
And this is where the I think the focus is.
But I went to an all white school, or predominantly white school,
I
in
hope
Lake
so.
Forest, Illinois, and I didn't feel that I was being discriminated against because I was black. I felt out of place because I was not as knowledgeable as some of my white peers.
See,
They had more experience at life at 17, 16, 17 than I did at the time.
Well, I couldn't go there. Like
It was a beautiful campus,
I'm
still
totally-
is. And that's why I wanted to go. It was a beautiful campus.
I'm totally opposite. So, I mean, I don't see my school as being predominantly black or Hispanic, but I mean, there weren't like massive amounts of white people, and it was very, very diverse. And
Mhm.
I mean, I learned a lot, but I mean, I was stupid.
I think you at Lake Forest, you could possibly fit the whole black student demographic and its student body into one dorm room,
Listen, you can take 50%.
which is okay.
you
That was
take-
in the 80s.
You can take all the high
Right.
schools. I think you could take all the high schools in Orange County and house them in the school I went to.
Yeah, there's 60,000 people that attend UCF. That's a city
No,
unto
I'm
itself.
talking about the high schools.
Oh,
My
the
high
high
school is probably
Right.
this. You could probably put every high school student here in there.
Right.
I mean, a graduating class of 5,000.
Wow. So in this bill, I mean, the Republicans are in control. The conservatives are in control. They feel a threat. Whatever it is, they feel a threat. They believe there is a threat. They think there's a threat in the public education system
This is
from grade pre-K up to the college level, that critical race theory is being taught, that gender studies is
Well-
a threat. Wait. And that women's studies is a threat. And they're in control, and they hold the purse strings, and they're taking action. Now, would it make Florida public education at any level that less valuable? Would it become less diverse in opinions and thought? What would be the repercussions of these actions?
So I think there's an extreme that they're focusing on. Now, see, David, you always bring up a topic where I am always in a very hard place because
We both are.
like I sometimes this is why working with you is interesting, because you'll pick a topic that you know that Joel will be torn with this party, trying to come to terms with. The attack. So this attacks the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it attacks
does?
it attacks the First Amendment in the way that I don't think it will be able to stand on its own 2 feet, because it's the slippery slope. You start taking and cutting the topics. You know, I get where they're going, but I don't understand why you would say you can't teach these things. Maybe you can put them into curriculum. Maybe you can't have a course for it,
Right.
but you not.
Yeah,
But they're not banning it. They're telling you that it can't be funded.
Right.
So
And
in other words, it ends up, okay, if you want to talk about black, the black, the slavery, and where it happened, and all, and you want to talk about women and how they didn't have the right to vote. All of those are very important topics,
sure.
but are they the only focus? How can you put a whole material together that predominantly women? I mean, women's studies. Well, why are women's studies different than men's studies? Right? I mean,
Is there
is the
men's
focus
studies?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
But is the focus just on women?
Right.
What is the focus? Now, if the focus is like my show where I talked about Mary Surratt,
Mhm.
that's one thing. You're talking about women, how they impacted how they impacted the world, how they did, they took the vote, they did all
Sure,
these things. So
sure.
yeah, I could understand that, but just one topic, diversity, that one's strange because I think we're all diverse.
Mhm.
I consider myself diverse, and I would be literal. I think I'd be beat over the head if I say that, but I'm diverse because I don't look like you. I mean,
We come
I
from
might
two
be
different parts of the country.
I might be in the majority. So David, here's one for you. And I always try to do this. I just want to. I went to the doctor, and I check in, and this really nice black guy. He takes me while the other black person was sitting there on the computer. So then the other 3 black employees came in, and then the Hispanic woman left the room. I didn't see a white person until I saw my doctor,
Okay.
and usually my doctor is a Patel. So even then, so I'm saying, like, if the white person, this is what they're getting at. If a white person is a majority, why is so many public servants? Why so many people work for the government don't reflect society? And it's just ponder on that for a moment, because when you go there, the employees are not, they're not 13% or 14 or 16% black. They're predominantly 75% black, or maybe 60% black. There's a lot of diversity, and I applaud the diversity, but I also say, how many people are not being hired
Mhm.
because they're white?
And I believe during the 60s and the 70s, in this effort to level the playing field, civil rights movement, the government is the incubator of progressive ideas and progressive movements in government.
Mhm.
And so you saw civil service being one of the vehicles for the Black middle class.
Well,
And so efforts
But-
were made specifically to recruit and to hire and to establish
well, it might have
more diversity, more women. And you'll
and-
see more women in civil service
and
than you
David,
do.
and David, this is where I'll go. This is where I always go to my favorite Democrat. And guess what? It's not FDR. It's Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
Because what you were talking about, Woodrow Wilson was terrible at. He removed all. He segregated the public service. He was segregated the army. It's like those things he gets hit over the head for, but then they compliment him for everything else. So, but what is there to compliment if your character is not there? So
Mhm.
I've never complained. So what I've said right now is not a complaint.
Right.
It's an observation.
Right.
But I think this is where the pushback comes. And I've always said this, and I think Colin Powell kind of brought it, forward, because here's a guy, first one to become the first Black to become the Joint Chief of Staff, first Joint Chief of Staff to ever be an ROTC student. So he broke a lot of barriers. But he said, if it weren't for affirmative action, he couldn't have accomplished those things. But he also warned when is affirmative action going to backfire or be reversed? Like, the diversity is changing, the society is changing. What happens when white people become the minority?
Mhm.
Do you keep that? Do you keep that going?
Right.
So he open your eyes. He
Mhm.
still supports it. He still supports it, but where would you wipe it out? Because the
Is society
if the minority,
really the mindset of society? Are they ready? Are we ready to acknowledge that we are a diverse culture, a diverse people, and that we will take that in mind as we make decisions on hiring,
David,
promotion,
but we can't.
or are we going to fall back on how things were in the past?
Listen, I'm going to go straight to I'm going to go straight to my Achilles heel, and I'm going to go. This is the worst part of education, public education, and I don't know what that is, but
You need to.
yeah, maybe because I get too close. I don't know, but the thing is, no, it's not because I'm getting too close. I don't know. I cannot stand the fact that you go to school and you have to sit there and they have all these things where they talk to you about your heritage. I love my heritage. I know nothing about my heritage, but to tell me to bring something forward from my heritage, my culture, whatever, well, it's a little difficult when my kid comes up to me and says, I need something from our heritage. Well, I don't do anything French. I don't do anything English. And
that was a learning moment for you and your
and
granddaughter.
my German is so far from English. It's like
But that's what education is all about, is the exploration of history, of things that
but the child
we're unaware of.
but the child can't do it. When do we become Americans? When do we I mean, I have never clung to my European history.
But haven't you been curious? I've been curious as
Listen,
to if I am, a descendant of the Yoruba people of West Africa.
Uh-huh.
I've been very curious about
An
that.
interest is an interest, yes. Okay, and I
And I love
I'm
to
gonna
in
pitch-
the age of the internet. I don't necessarily have to go to the university to learn that. I could do my own damn research on the internet
Yeah,
now,
but you know,
or
everybody's
find
going.
my lineage, with 24 and
Well, listen, I'm going to give.
but
The funny thing is
isn't that
where
a
we
great
come.
opportunity to explore though? And isn't that
We
part
have
of education?
so many ways, but we have so many ways to do this.
But
So
it was a school project, right?
yes, and I'm telling you, they say you have to come in and with something from your heritage. It's like, okay, your heritage is like you're American. Like you can't get any more. Martin Van Buren may have been the first person born in the United States, the first to take over as as president of the United States. But at some point, we started getting born here. We started speaking different English. We started, having different traditions. But our traditions, share my traditions. I don't eat fish and chips.
Right.
I mean, I
But
can't.
what is American heritage?
I can't afford French food, so
my American heritage is far different from your American heritage.
no, and that's why I think we need to teach really good history.
Whose history?
But to go back to your thing, no, that's where this is coming from.
They'll call that critical race theory, though.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
If you're not,
because if I start speaking about 1619, someone's going to push back.
But 1619 has an agenda. 1619 has agenda.
It has an agenda.
But just like other things.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's that pushback. But I embrace 1619 as part of American heritage, history, my history. But DeSantis and conservatives in Tallahassee are pushing against my interpretation of American heritage and American history.
So
am I not valid? Am I not a man?
Well, you are a man. I can tell you that. But let's talk about the fact that it's the way you look at things. So we talked about
the way
genealogy.
I look at things, or the way we look at things?
We look at things like where.
But how do you do that? Looking from the same lens, that's difficult because we both had different experiences, individual experiences,
and that's why we talk the way we do, and we have issues with where we're at is because you and I maybe not like the majority. Maybe we have these little quirks where I'm not afraid to say, hey, I'm interested. I'll take a peek at something that's different. Not going to embrace it. Maybe I don't own it, but I will still experience it. My wife is many a movie I've been sitting and watching, and I've hated it. Like I've loathed the movie, and I still get to the end, which drives her crazy. She's like, I would have been in there for 10 seconds and out. Like Dear Watch. This is it's very few, but Dear John,
the TV show, or
no, it was a movie, but Dear John was the name of it, and I got through 10 minutes of it, and I walked. I said, I got away from it because it was like a Hallmark, special, even dumber than that. Like, I mean, even sappier than that is what I mean. Yeah. But let's go back to genealogy for just a second, because I'm going to pitch OWL, because it's OWWLL. And as I'm an ambassador, a brand ambassador, so you're going to hear me talk about it a lot, and I'm really excited about it. This is a tool that gives you experts at your fingertips,
right?
But it's not free. You pay a little bit for that expertise,
right?
So you have to be careful who you want to talk to. So I have to call 3 people, and whatever it costs, it doesn't make any difference. I'll get it back in my expertise.
Correct.
But the thing is, I saw somebody who did genealogy, and I talked to him I gave him a little bit. I told him that, my grandfather was Leroy, and we had 2 guys in the family. So Guy Hawksley, and then you have Guy Hawksley, and that we came from England into Maine, and then down into Massachusetts. I'm not thinking about what I told him at all. I'm just telling him I was fascinated that he does something I've never really looked into. he tells me all about Guy and his family and his wife, his stepchildren, and then the other guy. And I'm like, everything he's saying is stuff I kind of knew.
Right.
But yes, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. But it was has my how long has my family been here? Maine was Massachusetts when my family when my family arrived to Maine. You know, Maine gets named later on.
Right.
So I thought it was fascinating. So I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think that history books look at our past as we have to pay, that we have to pay some kind of, debt to our past. When I look at it, I think we should celebrate our future by not repeating the past. So I say slavery was an education, a war that totally destroyed thinned our population, brother against brother. And
A war that had to be fought.
and if it wasn't fought, we wouldn't have learned. The abolitionists didn't have the upper hand. They didn't. They didn't have the upper hand.
Okay.
The South had so much going for them. The North had, industry and everything else, but we're not the same amount of food. They didn't have. There was a lot. So you have two sides coming together, and one has, which one had the advantage? Did the North have the advantage?
By the outcome of the war, sure.
Well, if you look at how many battles they lost,
yeah, they did.
I mean, the North. I'm a Northerner. I mean, I can honestly say, hey, we lost, and people don't.
Lost.
When you study the Civil War, and people really, some people live it.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at a battlefield and go, this is where Grant stood. This is where, and I've been to Pennsylvania. I've been to Gettysburg because that's where
right. And that's the fear, because it sounds like people still want to fight that war, still want to bring that back, that time back. And people, and the pushback to what's happening in Tallahassee, it's just that they don't want to go back. It doesn't look like conservatives want to look forward, want to move forward, that they want to pull back. And that's the fear. That's the concern.
It looks to me
beyond a group of individuals who have the attention of the media, have the attention of voters, and an agenda that is fearful. That's the concern.
So to wrap this up, it's not my cup of tea. I mean, I have no problem with this conversation. I like to think that I am a positive thinker, and I think forward. I love the fact that you have the right to insult me with anything. I love the fact I love the fact that I can say almost anything. The Constitution has given me the right to, seek,
and there's repercussions to exercising those particular rights.
Yeah, and then look, if you decide that you want to put together a protest and you do everything right, and then, instigators come, people that have a higher or more intolerant,
right,
they join you, so you can be represented as the bad. The bad's always going to come, but when you come out and you have the right intention, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and starts burning cars and crashing into, using your event to do their
as a vehicle to do bad things.
It makes your right look bad. I mean, here, I want to protest. But if you're going to come in and destroy that,
there's always going to be.
We're going to always have January 6th now. We're always going to have We're always going to have Black Lives Matter. I try to put my head around all these things. And I try to put myself in these people's shoes. So I will debate anything.
Mhm.
And I can take either side a lot of times because that's the way I'm programmed. But at the end of the day, it's you can't make this shit up.
You
It's First
can't.
Amendment.
You can't.
You
can't make this shit up.
you sit there and because it's the Republicans, you have to defend it because it's the way.
The only way I defend
And-
this
and-
is because they are in power and they have awesome power.
But I don't know
and
where
the-
they came
and I'm
from.
so disappointed in the alternative and the Democrats. And so I'm going to continue to hammer the fact that when you have the power like the Republicans, they will weld it until they're out of power. And Democrats need to do something.
But this kind of stuff is what gets you out of power. Since the Democrats owned the state for how long, right? And now it's under
it's been
Republican.
under, but wait a second. It's been a generation that
Our
that
lifetime,
Florida has
so
been under.
in our lifetime,
under-
it's totally different. Like
and what type of Democrats were they?
the very first, the very first Speaker of the House that was Republican, Dan Webster, is sitting in Congress right now. I mean, and you have another Speaker of the House that is our senator. So
They
yes,
moved up,
the
and
Republican
and-
Party is taking
and
over.
further solidified their power.
But so before we,
Power to them.
so we're gonna leave this one open ended, and we're gonna let you make the decision. I think it's a First Amendment right that this is not going to be able to stand on its own 2 feet.
I think it will.
I do think it'll pass. I do think it will, go to court. Somebody will sue over it. And I think that somewhere along the lines, if it gets up to the Supreme Court, even though it's conservative, I just don't see how it.
I think it will stand. It will stand. It will stand in the Supreme Court. It's like, it's just saying we're not going to fund a class for Latin. Who speaks Latin now? Who reads Latin?
Well, the Catholic Church doesn't even do their services in Latin anymore.
Exactly.
So they did that way with that in the 60s. So yeah, we have to grow up. And I mean, this is where we all have to grow up.
yes.
We all have to learn to be able to play on that same playing field. We at some point we have
If
to
we're
become
Demo-
brothers and sisters
Yeah.
in whatever faith you have.
Cue the Kumbaya music.
Yeah, you got to. But here, before we leave, I just want to tell you, Anna Eskamani actually has a bill that I think will pass.
For her. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a show called "You Can't Make This Shit Up," and she's got a bill that's gonna help us. So it's HB 29,
My favorite number.
and it's tax exempt for diapers and incontinence products.
Okay.
Shit. Boop.
Shit.
So, hey, you can't make this shit up. She wants to give a tax break on diapers and incontinence. So she is our
You
can't
she
make
is
this-
well-intentioned.
you can't make this shit up superpower. And Eskamani, we love you. Have a great day. I just can't make this shit up, David.
You just can't. All right, Joel.